This one is the top 25 staff picks based off of those third-party IP ideas. Get commenting below on what you think about them, but now let's dive in. So, in 25th place, we currently have Tetris Solid, a physical Lego take upon that brilliant video game that's been going on for decades now, and I have to say, I'm very impressed. It is a really clever idea, and with just a few changes to the rules and of course the way that this would have to be played, the designer has created technically a new game based about as closely as you possibly could upon Tetris whilst putting it into Lego bricks. It's a very fun concept and something that I would be very keen to see. I can imagine actually sitting and, once having built this, put it together, playing with it. Now, I just want to say, as we're kicking off this video, I have no interest in any of the designs. I don't know any of the designers, okay? This is just my opinions, as is always the case. There's no agenda here. And obviously, with all of the ones in this video being based upon third-party IP, I'm not going to be commenting on whether or not it's likely to be made. Licensing would always have to be worked out with this if it reached 10,000 supporters in order for Lego to ever actually choose it to go into production. So let's not waste time with that. It's very simple. If you like it, go over to Lego Ideas and support it. And whilst I think it's fair to say that this certainly isn't the prettiest of builds, there's no doubt in my mind that it's super fun. Moving on to number 24, and we have Bambi. Over 80 years now since that amazing animation came out. Of course, famous for that scene which sent shockwaves of horror through everyone watching when the hunter set his sight on Bambi's mother. I do think it's very deserving of a set. We did see that little deer placed in with the Snow White set, the moulded one, obviously. And yes, there were deer in Snow White. But I did wonder if that perhaps was a little wink and a nod towards Bambi, whether that's maybe something that Lego have their sights set on already. But if not, this is a 819-piece little diorama, brick built, nothing moulded here, and very pretty it is too. Of course, you get alongside Bambi, Thumper, and of course Flower the skunk, along with the owl and the couple of little bluebirds there. I like the way that the base has been done. Curvature's very nice on that, and also the tree I'm a big fan of as well. I think actually the only thing that I don't like personally about this set is the brick-built Bambi. Doesn't quite look right to me. Not in terms of the shaping, that's been done well, and the legs are nicely gangly. It's just that I think the exposed studs maybe on the body just doesn't look quite right, because of course we don't have those on the likes of Thumper, Flower, or the birds. So maybe just lose the exposed studs on the side of Bambi. That would be a little bit of a bonus in my opinion. But otherwise, very sweet. I would like to see that done. Then in 23rd spot, we have a Godzilla, the one with the most supporters. There have been a few in previous rounds of Lego Ideas, and indeed in this current one as well, but this is the staff pick with the highest number of supporters. Pretty decent idea, bearing in mind that there is another Godzilla movie coming out later this year, and it certainly would make for a fairly impressive Lego build. Unfortunately, I do think it's a bit bland, just because we've got so many dark colours, and that's understandable. Quite correct in the way that it is mirroring Godzilla there. Just unfortunately, I think that all the nice little textures and details that are going on throughout are lost because of that, and probably wouldn't look that good on display. So maybe some artistic licensing could be taken with this. Have a few more shades going throughout. Just my thoughts on the matter. As always, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Moving on, we come to Nania, and of course the Witch and the Wardrobe. Don't know why the lion got left out of this. It is, of course, a fantastical story, beloved by many ever since it's been written throughout the generations, and of course was translated semi-successfully into film form. I know it had a very mixed reception, but it does sort of seem the thing that, again, would be really well received in Lego. I'm sure there'd be a pretty big following for it. And this build, not using that many pieces, only 568, and of course our 6 minifigures, all fitting on a 32 by 32 base plate, making it a fairly simple but very effective diorama. I think that my main issue with this is that in order to really understand what it is, we'd have to display it from the side, and it doesn't really look good, I wouldn't have thought, from that particular angle. Also a little bit bland on this side when we compare it to the other. So I definitely think that it could maybe benefit from a few extra pieces. A little bit more detailing wouldn't hurt. Otherwise, I do think Nania does deserve to have a set put into Lego. Moving on though, we come to a motorised version of Howl's Moving Castle. 20 years apparently since this film. It's scary how time flies sometimes, and gosh, there is certainly a lot that's gone into this. huge amount of different pieces. You know, it's been incredibly recreated, almost too much actually. There's so much going on. It's a little bit hard to take in, but this model isn't about static display. The designer has in fact motorized it, which is pretty awesome. I mean, look at this. I'll just zoom in on that. That's very clever. So, and it's also apparently a 1:100 scale as well. Look, it's not for me, but I tell you what, very deserving of being a staff pick. Massive attention to detail, and to actually be able to motorize that and have it work stably, not only walking, but with the sort of head movements and the tongue as well. Just absolutely incredibly done. And then we come to an interesting one. Gremlins, the 40th anniversary, yes indeed. And it would be cool to get Gizmo. Of course, with the 80s challenge that LEGO did, despite all of the mistakes that they made along the way, which I've covered in previous videos, one of the finalists is, of course, a Gremlins build. So I think the fate of this one very much lies on whether or not LEGO choose that. It does definitely deserve a 40th anniversary, absolutely. Really nice buildable figure. I'm sure a lot of us would like to get this. I'm torn on this one, frankly, because I do prefer the overall build that was submitted for the 80s challenge, so that we can obviously do this for minifigures rather than a buildable figure, and then have the house. But if that one wins out, I then won't get the others that I like in the 80s challenge. So, you know, it's difficult, isn't it? It's good to see that it's been chosen as a staff pick, though. Maybe LEGO are getting the message and they might actually give us this. I mean, come on, 40 years needs to be done. If you think so, head on over there and give it your support. Following on from that, we have another one for Avatar: The Last Airbender. I say another one, it's the only one in this video, but of course we have covered it in previous LEGO ideas before. There have been a few different submissions. I don't think this is the strongest, actually. There's been other submissions I've seen which I personally think that, you know, are better than this. So interesting that LEGO has chosen this particular one as their staff pick. Interested to know your thoughts on that in the comments below. It's not to say that I don't like it. It's very well done, and of course with Netflix having brought out the latest series and the rumours that this is going to be appearing in LEGO format in Fortnite, it is of course something that could be done. I guess that we will, as always, just have to wait and see. Then, with over a year left and heading towards 6,500 supporters as I film this, is E.T., a buildable version of our friendly extraterrestrial here. Now, this is something else that we've seen in the LEGO's 80s challenge. That was in a diorama rather than a buildable figure, and I must admit I do also prefer that diorama to this. Now here's the thing, this has been built very cleverly, almost 3,000 pieces being used, and it's very adjustable, so the neck can be moved up or down using the little gear that's been put on the back here. You can also apparently change the positioning of the head and of course the arms and hands as well. And I do think the expression has been caught pretty well. There's just certain angles which I'm not so keen on this on. Nice little touch that the chest can light up as well. Encouraging that LEGO has picked this as a staff pick. I think between this and of course the diorama that was a finalist for the 80s challenge, surely it's just sending a message to LEGO that, like with Gremlins, E.T. is something that in one form or another, preferably done nicely of course, is something that we really want to see. But here is the thing, it does have to be done just right. When it comes to models of characters like this or of Gizmo, we really want them, but we do want them to be, you know, as perfect as possible. There's going to be a lot of disappointment otherwise. In number 17, we have The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the Banks family mansion. I'm not going to lie, I never really got into this sitcom. I know that puts me in the minority. Of course, massively popular, just never really grabbed me. But that's irrelevant to this, because commercially, although LEGO might think twice about it if it ever got to that stage, because they have been stung on doing TV shows before. Some have done well, others haven't. From a purely design perspective, this has been really nicely done. Got some fun little features, good attention to detail, and the minifigures, if they were done like this, do look really nice. Also, quite an interesting take to actually do it with sort of the studio lighting. Does make it a bit different, I quite like that. Definitely one that would look nice on display. You know, whilst it's not for me, I certainly can't deny that. What is for me is this. I'm a big fan of Terry Pratchett's Discworld, and getting the library with Ook, the librarian, would be very much appreciated. It would be a day one purchase for me if this ever got made. I will admit that the LEGO Ideas submission of Great Atrian, the turtle with the elephants, I did prefer that to this, but as a little diorama, I definitely couldn't say no to this. Super, super fun. I would like to see quite a few different sets based on Discworld. Up next, though, we have the Smurf Village, and there's been a few over the course of the past few LEGO Ideas reviews, but I feel a little bit like Goldilocks with this one. Some have been too big, others have been too small. This one is just about right. It would be fantastic to get all of our different Smurfy characters in their own dedicated set, and I love the way that the village buildings have been done here. Very simple, of course, in a way, but actually beautifully colourful. I think the shaping has been caught superbly. Licensing aside, shouldn't be too expensive to do, and I think this is one that many of us would very happily build and have on display. Commercially, one of the strongest ones. Think it would do very, very well. Then, who did it? It was the vicar in the conservatory with a rusty trombone. It's Cluedo. Extremely popular board game, of course. So what better than to translate that into Lego? I think there could be a huge amount of fun with this one. I love it when we get things that aren't just builds. There's a full-on game that can actually be played with this. I mean, sure, licensing aside, it's a fairly big set, quite a lot of pieces going into it, so probably wouldn't be the most friendly from a price perspective. But who knows, I think it deserves a shot. I would love to have this. Great idea, really well done. I mean, let's be frank, this isn't one for display. It is just all about that fun value, but it's got it in spades. Moving on though, this is one that I adore. It's Snoopy and Woodstock by the Campfire. Snoopy does definitely deserve to be put into Lego form. I mean, hey, I'm a big fan of beagles, full stop. I have them as pets. Wonderful dogs, very, very characterful. But of course, Snoopy the story with Peanuts, Charlie Brown, all of it. I can't really think of much more, just general IP-wise, that I would like to see put into Lego. This particular build, it's very sweet. I think what I'd really like to see would be Snoopy on top of his kennel with his flying goggles on, with Woodstock as well, you know, when he's pretending to be flying a plane. That's what I always picture. I think that was one of the most well-remembered things for me out of them, but just putting that aside. Wonderful little diorama, very sweet, and I know that if this ever got made and I could buy it, it would give me a little smile every time that I looked at it, and I think it probably would for a lot of others as well. So a thank you to the designer for this one. I do like this very much. Next up is this, one of the most classic robots of all time, known by many names. But if you grew up in the 80s, well, I say the 80s, actually it was the 70s as well, although I don't remember that. But the 80s, this will definitely mean something to you. It would be fantastic to get as a Lego build, and it's been really nicely done. Loving the articulation that is going on here. This would be wonderful to position. There's been other submissions for the likes of Voltron, and of course we've had Lego actually do Transformers with the likes of Optimus Prime and Bumblebee coming up. Obviously different IPs, very different, but if we want to talk robots, effectively mech style, something that Lego is definitely not unfamiliar with, I'm just trying to think of any reason that Lego could come up with for not doing this other than any licensing issue. Because, I mean, surely this would sell, wouldn't it? Got to be a huge fan base. I mean, it's great that they have done it as a staff pick. I mean, look, I suppose the problem with all of these third-party IPs, it does make it more difficult. That is why Lego certainly have an easier time with original ideas. They're going to work out cheaper to produce and obviously for us all to buy. But they tend not to do a bad job at being able to strike deals with other companies on this sort of thing. So, you know, fingers crossed again. Sadly, the same cannot be said for this Simba and Nala. I think that these were done wonderfully. Of course, we have just had the brick-built Simba officially revealed, both the small one and the big one. I do love this as a concept. It would have been really nice to get Nala as well. Sadly, well, it depends. I was going to say there's very little point in voting for this because there's no way that Lego will do it. It just won't happen, obviously, because of that. But that's kind of unfair to the designer because, of course, they didn't know it. So although this will never get made, I kind of think that actually, if you do appreciate it, you still should go over and vote for it because the designer deserves that. You know, they've put in a lot of care and time and attention and done a great design. So if you do like it, I think you should show them that. I think you should still vote for it. But obviously just be aware, never going to get done. Moving on now though, we come to our Sony Walkman, specifically the TPS L2 from 1979. I didn't know the specific model, I'll be honest, but what a cool design again. We've seen other Walkmans proposed. I do like this one a lot. I think it's got some beautiful details on that. Wonderful colouring. Sadly, things like this I very much doubt would get printed. There'd be stickers, but you know, for what it is, I think we could probably put up with that. Great to see that it has been chosen as a staff pick. It's the sort of thing that does stand a very good chance. We've seen quite a few retro or vintage things done over the past couple of years, and this is definitely in there with them. If they did it, I might even take a little bit of liberties and just stick it next to the Guardians of the Galaxy build and next to Star-Lord's mixtape. I think I could probably get away with it. Again, it's the sort of thing it's going to mean quite a bit to a lot of us, and plenty of others aren't really going to care about it. So commercially would split opinions, I'm sure. It's not too big, so shouldn't be too expensive. I do think a Walkman, in one form or another, whether it's this one or one of the others that have been proposed that didn't make it as staff picks, you know, I do think a Walkman overall will be a good shout. And I do really like the way that the headphones have been done. I think that's very nice indeed. Now though, I need to be very careful in how I pronounce this. This is the BLEX 16mm camera. Thankfully the design is not a load of BLEX. The designer has given us some information about this and the history in the description below, which is quite interesting, not stuff that I already knew. Coming back to the actual build itself though, looks really nice. I mean, I hate to say it, but this would be great just for the parts, wouldn't it, if it actually got made. But even as it is, very cool looking thing. Again, I can imagine if you had this on display and somebody came into your home and looked over at it from a distance, they're never going to think that this is actually made of Lego, are they? If it was produced like this, especially if you had the side off. Very cleverly done. It's cool, it's quirky, and it's certainly different, so very nicely done. And then this, Mr. Bean's suitcase. Ah, Mr. Bean, fantastic. Rowan Atkinson, absolutely brilliant. What a genius. I love so much of his work. This would be brilliant to have it in Lego. He's so cool to get him as a minifigure with his little teddy and, of course, the classic Mini and our mystery driver. If you've never seen Mr. Bean, one, where have you been? And two, it was always this mystery vehicle, unknown driver, that met a sticky end whenever Bean was around, whether it was bumping it out of car parking spaces or knocking it off the road. This is a really good one. I think it's a nice idea that it comes in the suitcase. Of course, you can take all the different figures and models out and, stack them up in front of them. Be an awesome one to have on display. How many pieces is this? Just over 1,000 pieces. It's not going to be too expensive. A little bit higher as a license, of course, but I think, again, it would sell really well. So it probably stands a pretty good chance if you do want to support it. Moving on now, though, we come to the Sony PlayStation, the PS1. Well, obviously, we got the Nintendo Entertainment System from Lego before, so if they could get the license, I don't see why they wouldn't give us another form of games console, especially this original PlayStation. It's got a lot of details to it, and apparently there are certain working functions in this, pressable buttons, etc., according to the description. I think obviously it has a limited fan base. I don't mean PlayStation, obviously that's got an incredible fan base. Just the amount of people who want to have that or a retro console, regardless of brand, in Lego form, that's a little bit more limited, but definitely the sort of thing that I can see them doing. Not my favourite, I'll be frank. I probably wouldn't get it if it was ever made. However, I think the appeal is fairly obvious with this, and it has been translated into Lego form very well. Moving to number 6 now, though, we come to the New Holland CR Combine Harvester. This is what I really like about Lego. Doesn't it bring together such a wide array of people? I mean, just reading the description, clearly the designer has a real interest in this sort of thing, knows what they're talking about. I'm not going to pretend that I know what they're talking about. I don't. However, I do appreciate, particularly farm machinery. I'd like to see a lot more of that as a sub-theme. Tractors, combine harvesters, etc. across the likes of the city range and, of course, the Technic range as well. I think a whole agricultural sub-theme there should be just a whole lot more of. That aside, this is a cool looking thing, isn't it? I suppose it's going to be a bit of a Marmite one. Some people will really like this, others it won't mean anything to. I just like the look of it. I do like it. Now, it looks like these would actually turn. There's nothing that I can see in the description about there having been made space for, power-up functions for motorization. But even if there haven't been, I don't think that it should be that difficult to do because, again, this is the sort of thing that I would really like to get motorized. Then on to number 5, and we've got another Snoopy and Woodstock. And it's great to see. As I mentioned, I would love to see Snoopy. I prefer the other one to this. I don't like the way that the ears have been done. Again, Snoopy is a beagle, and one of the biggest things is the ears. So I would like to see those done differently. As mentioned, this sort of pose is what I would really like to see. But those are only small gripes. Overall, come on, get it to the support that it needs. With a few tweaks, it would be awesome. And I do so want to see Snoopy in Lego form. Now, our number 4, I'm not really going to spend time on because I've already covered this in the trains and train buildings video that I did on the Ones Gathering support. But just a quick recap, this is the one by the same designer who seen success in the Bricklink Designer program. Really looking forward to the train. I think it's Series 4 that's coming up. This would go, nicely in with that world, the general store, etc. Actually, no. Sorry, I apologise. I'm wrong. This is the blacksmith shop. I was thinking it was the train station. I didn't even read it. I shall smack myself on the wrist most vigorously. It is the same designer, though. I am correct about that. So this is another one to add into that Wild West world. Try saying that quickly and repeatedly after you've had a few. Look, I liked the general store on Series 1 of the Bricklink Designer program. I have pre-ordered it. I know it didn't sell out, but I'm looking forward to get it. Looking forward to get that train that's coming up as well. I really like the Wild West theme. And then these designs that he or she is doing really do it for me. I'd like to have a lot more sets based on this in general. Now, interestingly, why is this in the third-party IP? All of the others the designer's done haven't been. Can't be just because it's under the general Wild West theme. Am I missing something? Is this based on something else specific, or has it just been wrongly labelled? Maybe I'm missing something really obvious, but that has thrown me a little bit. I think I'll need to look into that after the video's done, and then I can update it in the description or in the pinned comment or something. But in the meantime, if you know, post in the comments. I'm now intrigued. But aside from that, love the build. Would be really cool to see this. Let me know if you agree. Now, in number 3rd spot, the Loneliness of Voyager, NASA's Voyager mission. I mean, this is over 9,200 supporters as I'm filming this. 699 days left. Do you know what? I think it might just stand a chance of reaching 10,000. Just scrape by, maybe. Yeah, it's going to happen pretty soon, isn't it? I'd like to see more pictures. Cool concept. Lego has been having a big space focus, been working with NASA, so licensing-wise, I don't really see why this should have an issue. I do think that if they chose to do something like this, they probably wouldn't do it under Lego Ideas, though. They'd probably just do it themselves. But, maybe I'm wrong there. They have chosen it as a staff pick after all. I'm just not sure. I think we've seen quite a few other space ones recently. There's a lot more coming out throughout this year and into 2025. Also, with how they handle the likes of the solar system, I'm just really nervous now about how they would translate this. So I'm really not sure that this would ever actually get done, and if it was done, I'm afraid I just feel very negative about what the final production would be. But I am jumping the gun because all of that doesn't matter until it actually reaches support. So if you like it, if you think it's a good concept, obviously do so. Now then, number 2 spot, and it is a Tintin space rocket. We've seen quite a few of these proposed over the years for Lego Ideas. I don't think any of them have actually made it to the 10k support. So, I mean, look, it's good that this has been done as a staff pick. Over 9,500 supporters, plenty of time left. Should be able to make it. Would be really cool to see Tintin represented in Lego form. Size-wise, now, this is basically 1,700 pieces, a bit smaller than minifigure scale. I would like to see several minifigures with this, and on that basis, you can probably tell I'd quite like to see it as an actual set. I think it's really cool. I imagine it's of a certain time. If you haven't grown up with Tintin, I'm sure that the most amount of support is going to be coming from people who know that as well. And in that respect, come on. Kind of surprised this hasn't reached support already. But currently in number 1 spot for the most supported out of the third-party IP Lego Ideas staff picks is this. Now, this uses the frame from 21333, the Starry Night, but of course the picture itself is what we need to be looking at here. 9,800 supporters so far. This is going to be getting to 10k. It's going to be doing it soon. So the very simple question is, what do you think of it? Will you be buying it? I am a fan of most of the Lego artworks. I think it's a little bit difficult to judge this from just this image. You don't really get the sense of depth looking at it straight on like this, but I'm assuming, if it's done like the Starry Night was, it'll have that depth there. It's got a lovely use of colours going on. Really nice interpretation of it. So something that I would buy, but I know when it comes to The Lego artworks, this really is an area that does split opinion, even amongst those of us who like it. I mean, look, the likes of Mona Lisa, that's now been put back to October because of the scratching of the gold pieces in the frame. It just looks horrible to me. If you like it, fine, that's cool. In fact, that's good, because I was wanting to like it and then I saw it and just think it's absolutely terrible. So sometimes Lego really hit the mark with these, others they do miss it. Guess you'd simply just have to wait and see what would happen with something like this. But it's gaining the support, it's gonna get the support, it looks good. Maybe we could get some extra images when you get to 10K, that'd be nice. But overall would look really good hanging on a wall. Now that technically was it, but I just want to give a quick shout out to this Dumbo the Flying Elephant. Only 4,370 supporters, so it does have some way to go. We originally saw a version of this in the Disney 100 contest. Obviously, it was the Disney Magic one that won out over that. But this has been updated now, and I just really like it. I do like Dumbo a lot, and I think this is a really cute interpretation. So just wanted to give it my little wild card shout out of the ones gaining support at the moment. I think it's really cool. But there we go. That is the end of this video. The top 25 third-party IP staff picks from Lego. Which do you like? Which do you hate? Will any of them be gaining your support? If so, head on over to Lego Ideas and make sure to vote for them. But before you do that, make sure to like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.